As the second example, we're going to do another well-known one, tobacco. People have known for a long time that tobacco is pleasurable, and scientists discovered that nicotine, a compound in it, is pleasurable and addicting. It interacts with these acetylcholine receptors in nerve cells and in the brain and sends good signals to our brain. The tobacco industry decided we can add nicotine to cigarettes to sell more, addict more people, make more money. I have put references in these slides. I've only put very basic references. Most of this information you can find out by going to Wikipedia and reading about things like the health effects of tobacco. And these slides are available on our class web page in D2L. So this is a starting place, but it's a well-documented history. Nicotine was added to sell more tobacco. The tobacco industry knew that smoking caused cancer. They knew this for a long time. They knew that secondhand smoke was bad for people, but they didn't admit it until enough scientists and doctors and journalists showed how bad it was, and people agitated for it. They even hired doctors to mislead the public. And they used all sorts of techniques that many others covering up bad science continue to use today. So the tobacco industry covered up the bad effects of tobacco. They hired doctors and scientists, and those doctors and scientists said, no, tobacco's not so bad. It really could be other things. People haven't proved that tobacco's causing these problems. It could just be other things. It's really not that bad for you. And so it was the doctors and scientists paid by the tobacco industry versus the doctors and scientists and public health officials not paid by the tobacco industry. So again, look at the money and you can see who was correct in history. We've done a lot to fix smoking. We have public health policies against smoking in public places. We have financial penalties. Well, we made tobacco companies pay financial penalties for lying to us. There are jobs where you can't have the job. For example, in healthcare, in some places, like some clinics will say, if you're a smoker, you can't work here in our clinic because just the smoke you bring in on your clothes is enough to harm patients. And insurers make you pay extra for your health insurance if you smoke. So we've done a whole bunch of things to discourage smoking. It still makes progress, makes headway. There's still new young people that are getting addicted to smoking, and we've still got some way to go. But by making these policies as a group, as a country, as states, we have managed to reduce smoking and reduce the harms of smoking in our country. Let's go to the next story. This one is happening right now. Forever chemicals. You have learned about halogenated organic compounds. These per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFASs, are extremely stable, but they are extremely useful. We have them in all sorts of things. Some examples are over here on the right of this slide. Used in photography, firefighting foams, stain-resistant products, fast food packaging, nonstick cookware, paints, pesticides, shampoos. They're used in all sorts of things, and this is not an exhaustive list. You can go to this Wikipedia page and start seeing some of the things about these chemicals. Where's the money? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It makes people sick. And these chemicals don't go away. We have no idea how long they last in the environment. They last so long that we don't even know how long it'll take for them to break down naturally. Turns out the chemical manufacturers, at least some of them, have known since the 1970s that these per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances were making it into everybody's blood, back since they started out. They are contaminating water supplies. Basically, all our water supplies in the US and probably in much of the world are contaminated with these. And they've known since the 70s that these caused health problems. They even had scientists testing blood samples looking for them, and they found them in all the blood samples. And they covered it up with the same techniques as the tobacco and pharmaceutical industries. They had one of their scientists. Okay, so here's a reference to a scientific article looking at the techniques they used from evidence that's been revealed by getting a hold of internal documents from these companies. This ProPublica.org is a nonprofit investigative journalism organization. They do not accept funding from corporations. They only accept funding from small, no strings attached funding, and they do investigative journalism on behalf of you and me. They helped uncover this story and reported on it extensively. The chemical industry had a second scientist look into these chemicals and their presence in blood in the 1990s. And she discovered that they were in the blood all over and that they weren't in people's blood back in the 1940s or 50s before these chemicals became widespread. But now they're in everybody's blood. Her higher-ups shut down her research and told her that, oh yeah, this isn't a big problem. It's not that harmful. She later blew the whistle on them after she discovered that a previous scientist 20 years before her had found the same things and they had covered that up. She learned about that. And so, how could you recognize the bad science? Chemical industry CEOs and publicists said, this is not dangerous. This is not a pervasive problem. It was even chemical industry scientists acting as one acting as a whistleblower that helped reveal the bad science. And essentially all the other experts on the public health, on the health of PFAS said these are bad for people. But they didn't have the voice or the money behind the chemical industry. And so, again, if there's a question, in this case, you could look at where was the money. The big money was in hurting people. And so the people saying, stop hurting people, didn't have big money, and they were the ones telling the truth. We're fixing it right now. We're fixing it right now. But we're only just starting. We've imposed some financial penalties. In fact, over $10 billion in settlements from the chemical industry. But this hasn't touched their profits. They're still creating more forever chemicals for new applications. And none of the CEOs who did the cover-up are likely to face any consequences at all. But we're now getting EPA regulations saying we need to get these chemicals out of people's drinking water. We need to spend these huge financial settlements to help with Superfund cleanup of these chemicals. The Department of Defense, which has been one of the biggest users of these chemicals in flame suppression foams out on military bases, is now funding grants to help clean it up, because around military bases are some of the most PFAS contaminated groundwater and drinking water. So now the government is doing some things to clean it up. The businesses making these chemicals are still making more. So to fix it, we work together through our government, through our voting, and through regulating these businesses that are willing to harm people to make money. In our next video, we'll look at 2 more stories.